This lesson is going to be on the fundamentals of learning, and in this example it's the fundamentals of learning the guitar. This applies to all the lessons that I'm going to do, so it's very important to watch this lesson and to apply what you learn in this lesson to all sorts of all the lessons. Okay, so I think it's very important that you understand why I'm telling you to do something. I won't just tell you to do it and hope that you trust me. I'll try and explain why I'm telling you to do it and why that's going to help you learn the guitar. I think that's very important. Also, another fundamental of good teaching, in my opinion, is that you learn something, that you learn how to do something and then you apply it to something practical. So I'm going to try and make my lessons very practical. So you'll learn a chord or a note or a different shape, and then I will apply it to a song that hopefully you'll want to learn. So that will act as a motivation. It's very important to apply. You've got to learn some theory and you've got to learn some technique, and a lot of times people or teachers will just have you reading a book or playing scales for 3 days without any breaks, and that's boring in my opinion, so I'm not going to do that. If I want you to do something like play a scale, I will incorporate that into something that's a bit more fun. I think that's a good way to teach, and I've had good results with that in the past. A hugely important thing to do when you're learning the guitar, and nobody can do it, and for a guitar teacher it has been a little bit frustrating, so this is very, very important. What you need to do when you're learning something is always do it very, very slowly. The guitar is a motor skill. It's a skill that is to do with moving your fingers, and your fingers are very good at remembering what you've done with them. Your fingers have got really good memories. So what tends to happen is if you do something wrong the first time, when I'm teaching you to do it, you'll do it wrong quite a lot afterwards. If you get it right the first time, then you'll always do it right. So it's very important to do things very slowly. And the key thing to remember is if you do it slowly, it's not going to get any slower. If you're doing something slowly and you're doing it regularly, it's going to speed up. So don't worry too much about speed. Worry about doing the thing right and doing it slowly. So doing things really slowly is very important, and it's normally a lot slower than you think. I'll tell somebody to do something slowly and they'll think they're doing it slowly, but they're doing it fast. So my advice is to do it ridiculously slowly the first time, and what you're trying to do is you're just trying to get whatever it is I'm trying to teach you correct, and then once you've got it correct, the speed comes naturally. So don't worry too much about speed. And the reason it's so important to get it right the first time is because your fingers will remember it, and that can be a very powerful element that's in an advantage. It can be great if your fingers remember what you've done with them, but also if you do it wrong, then it can be a huge problem because they've remembered you doing it wrong. So it's really important to bear in mind that your fingers will remember what you do with them, so it's important to do it slowly. I'm also going to try and make my lessons very clear. I'm going to try and make it very clear what I want you to do, and if you're not sure what I'm telling you to do, try not to do it. Don't guess, because what happens if you guess, you'll get it wrong. So I'm going to try and be very clear. With a lesson or a video lesson, it's a little bit more difficult. If it was one-to-one lessons, I would be able to tell if you got it right or wrong, but it's always a really good idea to be very clear on what you're doing. If you can't, and a good way to check that is to describe it to yourself, to sort of in your head describe to yourself what it is you're trying to do, or even do it out loud if there's nobody else in the room. If there is, they might think you're crazy, but that's not really too important. So try and explain it to yourself. Always be very clear in what you're trying to do. Maybe run it through in your head what it is you're trying to do. It's a very important tool in learning. It's something called visualization, which is where you, in your head, you picture what it is you're trying to do, and that's a very powerful tool to use. So you picture what it is you're trying to do. So if I learn a chord, for example, this chord here, now that's a G chord, but it doesn't really matter the name, but what I'll do is I'll have a picture in my head of me playing this chord. I'll try and imagine me playing the chord, and once I've done that, I very seldom forget the chord. If you can visualise it and you can conjure a picture in your head, then it's a really powerful learning technique. It's called visualisation. I'm going to make my lessons very pointed. There's going to be very clear goals in what I'm trying to do. So each lesson will have very well defined and achievable goals. I think that's very important, that you know what you're trying to do in a lesson. To say, for example, I'm trying to learn the guitar, that's a goal, but it's not very well defined. It's a bit vague, whereas saying I'm trying to learn to change from this chord to that chord, it's a very clear and achievable goal. And once you've got the goal in your head, you can then break it down. We can break it down together and learn how to do it. And if we've got lots of little clear and achievable goals and we can put them all together, then we'll learn more quickly. It's a really powerful way to learn. So I'm going to try and make everything very clear. It's important when you're trying to learn something that you're quite relaxed. Try not to panic. That's one reason I think video lessons are quite good, because you can do them in your own home. Sometimes at a guitar lesson somebody might be a bit nervous, but it's always really good to be nice and relaxed and calm when you're trying to learn something, because your mind takes it in a lot more efficiently if you're in a good state of mind, if you're relaxed and not tense. Another point is repetition. There's normally a fair amount of repetition in learning a new skill. With guitar, your fingers aren't really used to working independently, they're used to working as a group. So one of the first things we have to overcome is getting your fingers to work independently, and to get them to be strong when they are working independently. So to do that, we'll do quite a lot of repetition, but as I said earlier, we'll do the repetition in relation to something that's fun. What I'm basically trying to get you to do is practice a lot, so I'm trying to find ways that encourage that. Another thing I want to talk about is the power of habits. Habits are very important, and if we can embrace this idea, then we can learn the guitar very quickly. Habits form very quickly, particularly with your fingers, because of muscle memory. So habits are so important, and that's why it's important to get the habits in place right at the start. We don't want any mistakes at the start, because they quickly become habits. If we get it right, as I've already discussed, they become habits too. So the power of habits is something I'm going to embrace in my guitar teaching. Another idea is something that we call economy of movement. It sounds a little bit complicated, but it's very simple and very logical. When you watch somebody playing the guitar, somebody who's bad at the guitar would play something like, and their fingers are moving quite a lot like that. If you watch somebody who's good at the guitar, their fingers will be moving only a very small amount. So it's much easier to play this note here. If your fingers coming away out here and back in, the first point is that it takes longer to do it, and the second point is that there's more room for something to go wrong. If you're moving from there to there, it's more likely you're going to end up in the wrong place. If you're moving from there to there, first of all it's quicker, and second of all there's hardly any room for a mistake to come in. Everything's very compact. So that idea is called economy of movement, and I hope you agree. It's very simple. The less you move, the quicker you're able to do it, and that's something that's really, really important. Economy of movement. It sounds a bit fancy, but it's very simple. So we'll use that, and I hope you understood my explanation of it. The less you move, the quicker you'll be able to do it. That's the basic idea. So that's a lesson on learning efficiently.